Let's get started. We covered last week, right? I'm sure we talked about how we transition a monolithic application to AWS, like web app and database. How do we transition that to AWS? Creating a VPC, subnet, all the security groups, network ACL. We talked about that. Also, we talked about how do we put a cloud native application in AWS, right? Serverless. We talked about the difference between a three-tier application and a cloud native applications. We talked about extensively how we utilize Lambda, how it get triggered, and how do we program Lambda by using different programming languages. And also we talked about the different other services available, for example, Event Bridge and SQS, SNS, and what's the difference between all these services and why a system architect should suggest one service versus other. So we talked about all these things. So what are we going to cover today? Look at it, typical three-tier applications. There are, a lot of system admins involved in the process. There are VMware admins, there are system admins for OS, there are middleware admins, DBAs, security people, release management, a testing team, in order to put an application in production. In the typical cloud environments, it's everything together. You can do everything. You don't need somebody's help for that. So that's the difference between on-prem and cloud. So this session is focusing on AWS certification. So I'm just covering only the subjects that's related to AWS certifications. We will cover virtual machines, EC2, and we will cover the cloud storage, why we should utilize one cloud storage versus another cloud storage. And we will look at how do we copy the data from on-prem to cloud, what are the options available, and why an architect should suggest one solution versus another. And we'll talk about the databases. What are the different databases available in the cloud and why we should choose one versus another. And also we'll do some certifications sample questions. So let's look at the EC2 instances and AMA images, right? That's a basic functionality for the AWS. So the method that we talk about is we look at the architecture diagram, right? We look at what are the architecture talk, and also we'll look at the cloud formation script. All the whatever we do in the command line, we can do it through cloud formation script also. And then we will look at the console, right? The console, for example, like how do we spin all these services, and we look at that. So the method of learning is learn by doing, right? It's not about presentations. It's not about looking at the videos. It's all about you do by yourself. So in that regards, I put a couple of labs here in the presentation. By the way, these presentation slides are available here. You can just, so the labs that I talked about is, for example, this is the first lab that I put the link. So what is this lab covers? This lab covers, how do we put a how do we spin a EC2 instances? What are the how do we launch a EC2 instance within AWS, and how do we monitor it, and how do we do all these things is covered here, right? So please take a look at it and please do the lab by yourself. The second lab that I talked about is how do we do a troubleshooting of the EC2 instances? For example, like, what's the EC2 instance connect? What is an AWS system parameters? All these things are listed here. So please take a look at it and please follow these labs. Don't read the documentations. Please follow the labs and then get an understanding about it. Okay, so let's look at the EC2 instance. So what is an EC2 instance? EC2 instance is nothing but a VM. And how do we spin out a VM? It's so easy. You just go to EC2 instance and click a launch an instance, right? So when you click when you look at the launch an instance, the first window is appearing is AMI. So what is an AMI? What is called an AMI? Amazon Mission Image. What is it? Amazon Mission Image is nothing but it's an easy to instance, plus you can encapsulate your OS, you can add your middleware, you can add your database, you can add your security groups, everything together. And that's, you can create an image out of your VM. And that image is nothing but, it's called AMI. So how do we create an AMI? So if you look at my console, I already have one, you know, EC2 instance running. All I need to do is look at EC2 instance and select this instance ID. And let me go to EC2 dashboard. Let's see. Going to EC2 dashboard, I can create an AMA image for the VM that I already provisioned. One instance is running, click on that instance. And all I need to do is I can create the AMA image by selecting the instance and going to, let's click on it and going to actions, and I can select image bar template and create an image. So think about it. I created an EC2 instance. I can add all the software that I need and operating system, middleware, web server, database, and also I can put all the settings. Once I do that, I create an image out of it. And that image I can utilize in order to spin additional VMs. And the AMA images you can look at here. All the AMA images that I am creating, you can look at it. This is one AMA images that I created, or you can go to AMA catalog, right? There are a lot of AMA images created by Amazon and also the third-party companies. You can look at all the images here and you can select any of these images. You can, if you want a LAMP stack, you can select a LAMP stack. If you want an Oracle database, you can get an image with an Oracle database. So all these are available. So coming back to this launch wizard, so let me select, this in particular AMA image. All I need to do is select an AMA image, and in this screen, you need to select which type you need to go, right? And then you need to select which VPC you need to configure and which subnet you wanted to do and review on launch. That's it, guys, right? You got an EC2 instance, right? It's asking me a key pair. I don't need a key pair, so I'm just putting a launch instance. There you go, right? It's simple as that. You right now, I get an EC2 instance with the web server, app server, and database, for example, like, So please make sure you understand the concept of an AMA images. That's very important. That's how you are spinning up the VMs. Well, that's good, right? Now I'm having an image EVM running. I need to talk about a couple of things that's related to the exam. Let me go back again. And if you look at the slides, I took a couple of options like instance metadata, instance profile. Let's cover what it is. So I'm going to EC2 dashboard, and I'm creating launching an instance once again, right? And all I need to do is I select an AMI image that I wanted to create. In this case, I'm selecting an Amazon Mission Images. And if you look at this screen, you can see an instance storage. And it says EBS only. And if I click here, I can see some instance storage associated with a couple of types, couple of instance type. What exactly is an instance storage? Why we need an instance storage? Thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate you guys are answering it. That's how I know that you guys are listening, you guys are going through. Instance storage is nothing but a local storage. It's directly attached, right? So what is EBS? So there is EBS is nothing but it's a persistent storage. Instance storage is nothing but it's a it's directly attached. It's going to go away. So remember, one of the questions that you will get in the exam is instant storage. When is it going away? If you reboot your instance, will the instant storage disappear? Yes, thank you, Vladimir. Yes, it will disappear. When you shut down, will the instant storage disappear? If you shut down or if you hibernate, will the instant storage disappear? Yes, instant storage will disappear. So Ramesh, if you look at the slides, so please download the slides once again. If you look at the slides, I put a slide about instant storage. The instant storage will disappear even if you hibernate your VM. It will disappear if you shut down the VM. It will be available only if you reboot the instance. Why do we need this instant storage? What is the use case? Instant storage is very useful if you want to do a high latency, actions. Of course, you have memcache, you have RDS, you have Redis. Those are the caching software. That is good. But the instant storage is available for high throughput items. Now look at the persistent storage, EBS. So if you look at EBS, I go here, I select a VPC that I wanted to select, and I go to the next configuration, and I see an EBS. So one of the decisions that you guys need to select is which EBS volume you need to take. That means which persistent storage you need to select. We can see GP2, GP3, IO1, and IO2. What exactly all these things, right? We know all these things are SSDs. So I have one slide about it. Let me go to here. So EBS volume is nothing but a persistent storage. It's very equivalent to SAN storage in the on-prem, right? You know that you wanted to create an web logic, you need to attach a SAN storage. You contact your storage admin, and storage admin create a storage volume for you, and then you get that volume attached to your VM. That's how you get the storage. Here in AWS, you can get it by yourself. So EBS volume, there are two types, SSD and HDD. Unfortunately, some of these things are covered in the exam. They do ask questions about, oh, I need a low throughput, but it's very cost-effective solution. Which SSD volume we need to select? If you look at the left side, 250 IOPS, that's HDD, and 256,000 IOPS, that is IO2 block express. So let me ask you a question. I need a cost-effective solution. Cost is the biggest factor. I don't care about the speed. Which EBS volume I need to select for my EC2? SC1? Yes, thank you. SC1 is nothing but it's a cold HDD. It's very slow, but very cost-effective. And if you need high throughput, then you need to select IO2. It's very expensive, and it's 256. By default, AWS choose GP2. I really don't like it. I don't see much advantage between GP2 and GP3, right? GP3, if you really look at it, it's only 0.08 gigabytes per month, but GP2 is 10 gigabits per month. You don't get much advantage, in terms of the only advantage you get is the throughput is little lower for GP2, like throughput is little higher for GP3. Majority of the application, believe me, you don't need GP2, you need only GP3. So always select GP3. It's a cost-effective solution. So you went through this. So now we talked about HDD, right? You don't see an HDD option here. Why? Why I'm not seeing an HDD option? We talked about HDD here. You have ST1, SC1. Yes, thank you, Jonathan. You cannot hold a root for for HDD. But if I add another volume, now I can see all the HDD and throughput and magnetic. So this is one of the exam questions, right? All right. So, and also this is, you can attach different volumes. So if you look at one of the diagrams, I may have it here. So how do we attach? Like, if you look at an EC2 instance, you can create different drive, right? You can create any drive that you need, and you can select any of this device that you need, and you need to associate this device mapping with a different storage, right? These are the storage mapping. This is called device mapping, but the instance storage, you can associate with this one. I cannot see the instance storage here because I selected an instance that doesn't support instance storage. So let me delete all these things and let me go to the next, uh, you know, next slide. So now you need to see like, now I can launch it and it's going through. So before I launching, one thing is like you need to create a security group associated with that EC2 instance. Why do we need security groups? We know that when you the purpose of creating an EC2 instance is nothing but you want to install a software, for example, web server. You don't want to open all your ports for your EC2. You want to open only the port that is port 80 or 443 for that particular EC2 for outside, right? For inbound traffic. So rest of all the ports you wanted to block. So the security group by default, all the ports are blocked. None of the ports are open for world. But if you create a security group and create an inbound traffic, that will provide a, a, a way of people can, connect your web server. So let's see what are the other things that we did not cover. We did not cover user data. So what is a user data? Make sure you understood these terminologies, right? Because you get confused. Some of the questions can be appear like, how do we configure a user data for EC2 instance? Let's look at it here again. I'm creating an EC2 instance, launch instance, creating, selecting an AMI. Once I create an AMI, you need to go to the next screen. That is where you can select your user data. So what is a user data? There are two things I wanted to cover. One is user data. Why the user data is important? The user data is important because you can do any kind of programming here. For example, like, I wanted to, let me copy something. Guys, this is my scratch part, right? I put all my URLs and all my notes here. This is very convenient so that I can do a cut and paste and all those stuff here. So if I go here, you can look at this. What exactly this script do? You can see here it will install an HTTPD. That means it will install an Apache. It will it will start an Apache, and it will provide hello, right? It will put a static page also, right? So in the user data, it's very powerful, right? You can download, you can write anything, you can attach anything here, right? So this user data is one of the important concept. The second thing I wanted to cover is, let me attach VPC attach, is IAM role here. Let me see. So what is exactly an IAM role? Think about this. I am creating an EC2 instance and I am installing software, and now I'm attaching an IAM, right? IAM is nothing but, you guys know that. I'll cover security later, but IAM role associate with this EC2. Why do I need to do that, right? Authorizations. Thank you, Valence. Because once I associate a role here, role is nothing but who, right? Who we are talking about. And policy is nothing but what. So IAM, there are two concepts. One is role and one is policy. So please make sure you understand the difference between role and a policy. Role is nothing but who. I am creating a virtual entity here, right? That has a policy attached to that role. That means that person has certain privileges, right? I can create a IAM role called admin, and or like I can say, like I create an IAM role that has privileges to read an S3 or connect to another AWS account and associate that policy with that IAM role, and I attach this IAM role with that EC2, what happens now? As Valence said, anything that you have, any software that is running that particular EC2 has the access to, with that IAM role. It is like it's getting that privileges to connect to or do certain activities. So IAM role is very important. There are a lot of questions related to IAM role. I don't think anything else I want to cover. So guys, any questions that we covered so far, let me know. So now we'll talk about instance metadata. So what exactly an instance metadata? Before we go into instance metadata, what we just covered, it's called instance profile. So think about, the AWS language, right? It's very important that you not only understand how to do this stuff, and also you need to get an understanding about AWS language, specific language, right? They have their own definition about throughput, their own definition about latency, their own definition about redundancy, right? So you need to know what exactly AWS is meaning. So the IAM role that we talked about, they call it as instance profile, right? So you have certain questions that they ask. Oh, the user wanted to create an instance profile and wanted to do blah blah blah. You will scratch your head. What exactly meaning of the instance profile, right? What's the difference between an instance profile and instance storage or instance metadata, right? So please get an understanding about the AWS terminologies. Instance profile is nothing but it's a container of an IAM role. So when you go to IAM and when you create an IAM role, you need to associate that IAM role with an EC2. That's how that IAM role will turn out to be an instance profile, right? And once you do that, then that instance profile is available for users. Let me do real quick, right? If you go here, I'm going to IAM. IAM is nothing but where I can create users and where I can create policies. We'll cover IAM in details later, but I just wanted to talk about this particular concept, right? I go to IAM. It's coming up. Okay, so once you go to the IAM where you can create your own users, your own policies. So here you go to users. Here you go to roles, right? This is role is nothing but a virtual user. I'm launching a role here, create a role. It's not a physical user, it is a virtual user, right? And here you can, once you create it, you can associate this role with all these identities. Here you wanted to create AWS service, now you wanted to associate with EC2, right? So once I do that, this is where this EC2 instance profile is available, right? So I just wanted to, cover this topic. Now you associate any policy that you need. For example, it has the AWS Elastic storage privileges, all those things, and then you can cover that. We'll cover IAM later. Just wanted to show you one thing. Okay. So we talked about instance profile. Instance profile is nothing but it's a container for IAM role. So once you do that, then you can attach that instance profile with an EC2 instance. That means any program that is running on that EC2 instance have access to that IAM role that has. Now the next question is, what is EC2 instance metadata? EC2 instance metadata is data about EC2, right? It's important that you know how to access that, right? Because it's very useful. You cannot get access to EC2 metadata from console or from CLI because the instance is running. You want the latest and greatest information for that particular instance. So instance metadata cannot be obtained from console or CLI. Another exam question, right? They will ask you, one of the option could be, obtain the instance data using command line. Yes, you cannot, right? That's not an option that you know. So in the exam, it's all about elimination, right? They have 4 or 5 choices. You wanted to eliminate the questions that the answers that you know that it's wrong, right? So these things will help you to do that. Yes, Vladimir. Yes, this is the URL that you provided. This is where you can access the the metadata. That's what it is listed. So we talked about user data, we talked about instance metadata, you talked about instance profile. Can't curl this. Valence, yes, you can do a curl, right? You can, that's what IAMD SV2 does, right? You go to any terminal and then you can do a curl that particular IP address. That's how you can get a metadata, right? Or you use this IMDSV2 software that will do the trick in terms of getting the metadata. So that's very useful. Sure. Okay, so we covered all these things. We covered the instance storage. We covered the difference between instance storage versus the persistent storage. Now we talked about EBS. We talked about the persistent storage, different EBS available like HDD versus SDD, and why somebody should choose HDD and somebody should use SDD. And within SDD, you have GP2, GP3, IO block, IO. We know that why one somebody should choose versus another one. Now let's talk about snapshot. What exactly is a snapshot? Right? If you look at the EC2 console, it's very important concept. A lot of people, I use snapshot all the time, right? It's nothing but it's a backup, of your virtual machine. Think about this, guys. Uh, think about this. Like you are creating a PowerPoint presentation, right? You're creating a PowerPoint presentation. You want to save that PowerPoint presentation very often, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, otherwise you lose the data that you put together, right? If you wait till end to save it, and if the computer crashed, you lose the data, right? So you definitely wanted to take snapshot of your PowerPoint presentation at regular interval. So this is nothing but a security against computer crash, or if you forgot to save it, this will take care of it. Snapshot is very similar to that, right? Snapshot will allow you to take a backup of your VM at the point of time, right? Say you are creating a VM and you're doing a lot of work, right? You're configuring that VM for web server, middleware, and you are doing a lot of work, and you get an error. Now you wish, like, how many times you wish, hey, I wish, like, I go back little point of time and I get the previous stage so that I can start over, right? I don't know why this error is coming, right? So when I do work with an EC2 instance, I always do a snapshot, right? Snapshot is getting stored in an S3, and you can restore back in your previous stage anytime that you want, right? So snapshot is a very important concept. All you need to do is take a snapshot. You can copy a snapshot and you can transfer this snapshot to another account. Your friend is working, certain things, and you wanted to send a VM to him. Snapshot is a quick way, right? You create a snapshot, send it to him. Or you wanted to, create a snapshot for your DR purpose. You are afraid that you're working a very important stuff and you're afraid that your AC is going down, your region is going down. You can take a snapshot and copy, shift it to another region, and that will take care of it. Any questions related to snapshot or anything that we covered so far? So how do we take a snapshot? All we need to do is go to instance and create a snapshot. I click here and I go here. Yeah, somebody raised the hand. Don't worry about raising hands. Please ask the questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, so will snapshot cost?
Snapshot cost, does it cost? It cost for the storage, right? So snapshot is incremental, right? That means first time when you take the snapshot, it's a huge S3 cost because you have to store the first time. But when you take the next snapshot, it's only an incremental, right? That's a very good question. A lot of people will think that, oh, let me delete a couple of snapshots that I created so that I can save money on the S3. No, you need to delete the first copy of your snapshot in order to save money on the S3. So to answer your question, there is no cost for snapshot. Only cost is the underlying S3 storage, right? And you cannot even access that S3, right? Because it's beneath your AWS, right? You don't have access to that. You don't get a URL for that. The only capability that you have is take a snapshot, that's backup, and then restore it. That's all I have, right? Did it answer your question?
Yeah, sure, thanks. So if it is moving from one region to another region,
Mm-hmm.
and I move the snap from one region to another region before performing some activity,
Mm-hmm.
so that will add that will pick up a new snap. That means the base snap will be created in the new region, right?
So when I move this snap, yeah, that's a very good point, right? Yes. So when you because the existing snapshot that you created, that may have certain characteristics for that particular VPC, particular subnet, particular security group that belongs to only that region, right, or that particular account. So your point is valid, right? If you're shipping this to another AWS account or you're shipping to another region, you need to make the changes on that. So that's why you restore it and then edit it and then you make the changes on the AMI, right? That's how you can get your own customized, image for that particular region or that particular account.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
thanks.
sure. So good. Did I lose anything to cover here, right? So if you look at the EC2 console, we cover the instances, we cover the images, we cover the elastic block storage, we cover the security groups. Elastic IP, you know that what is an elastic IP, right? Be very careful about elastic IP because AWS will rob you. AWS Elastic IP will get charged if you did not associate that with an EC2 instance, and make sure you delete that Elastic IPs. And let's go to other subjects that we talked about. So before I go through that, let me cover few questions, right, guys? This again, I copied the slides. I just wanted to make sure that you guys have slides again, right? It's very important. Please download the slides so that you can go through the slides as I am speaking. Let me make sure I have this. Yes. So this, let me put it again here. So please download the slides. So I have a question, guys. I mean, how many of you are registered for the exam? When are you guys, attending this exam, right? Like either professional or the the basic architect exam, right? Let me know, like, the chat session, even if you're not planning, let me know, right? So that I get an idea about, plan. Yeah, Jonathan says he planned to pro exam by July or so. Yeah. So my advice is, guys, please go ahead and register for it, right? Eric says planning for it. Hey, Eric. Yep. So please register for the exam. The advantage of registering for the exam is then you have a target, right? Then you can prepare for that target. If you don't register it, like, it will go endlessly. So let me ask you this question, right? I mean, appreciate if you guys can put the answer in the chat. Can I take a snapshot of a database? We talked about, taking snapshot is nothing but it's a point in time. It's a VM. You can take a snapshot. But can I take a snapshot of a database? Database is nothing but a VM plus associate storage, right? That means you're attaching a storage associated with that EBS volumes, right? So my question to you guys have is can we take a snapshot of a database? Is it allowed? Scheduled for June. Krishna says planning to take June. Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah, a lot of people are registered for the exam. That's good news, guys. I mean, really appreciate you guys are registering for it and doing it. So okay. Yeah. So Eric says that Udemy test questions encrypted DB, then you have to snapshot and encrypt and then import. Okay, how to register? Hey, how to register for an exam? Google it, guys. You just Google, how to register for an AWS exam. It will give you, tips. I suggest going to there and taking it in person. That's what I like it. Remote is always, trouble. So please go to a nearest session and do it. So, okay, most of you are said like yes, right? Yes, database snapshot, you can take it because snapshot is nothing but not only VM, it's associated EBS volume also, right? So the answer is yes. Next question, right? What is your preferred EBS volume, right? We talked about different EBS volumes that is available, right? And we talked about HDD, we talked about SDD. So which EBS volume is preferred, right? I am a normal person, I wanted to create it. Arun says GP3, Rohini says GP3. Yes, GP3 is preferred, GP2 is, Vladimir says GR2. Is there a EBS volume called GR2? Thought it's only GP, right? Okay. So GP3 is preferred, but again, it's depending on the use case, depending on your application. If your application is highly latency oriented and you want a couple of milliseconds latency, then so that's why the exam asks you certain questions about which one you should select versus which one. So there is another question. Configure 1-day window for 60-minute snapshot of the Amazon RDS multi-AC database instance and store it in another region. What's the issue here? You're architecting a system, you're creating an architecture, that you need to take snapshot for the backup, right? This is nothing but backup. So you are creating a snapshot. It can be only point in time, right? It cannot be continuous. So you decide like maybe a 1-day window will be fine because you want to save money on the S3 storage. Every 60-minute. Yeah, go ahead. Somebody trying to speak. Okay. So what is the issue here?
Yeah, Ravi, one question. Since we have partner with AWS now, by using your Kindle ID, can we
3 ans, donc c'est pas
take
seulement
labs?
mon dernier véhicule.
Hey guys,
J'ai changé en 2020.
somebody is speaking. Hey guys, please.
La dernière fois, j'en ai eu un qui me parlait que de la dernière voiture. C'est pour ça que je vous refais une demande.
Let me mute.
Je vous garantis que la dernière que j'ai reçue, il faisait pas les 3 ans. C'est pour ça que je redemande.
Hey guys, if you're not speaking, please mute your phone. Okay, thank you. So yes, so your question is, I'm sorry, I didn't get your question. So your question is about if we are a partner to AWS, so?
Right. So by using your Kindle IDs, can we register for a lab instead of personal ID with using your official ID? Can I use that lab?
So are you talking about the quick labs? There are a couple of labs, right? There are well-architect lab, there are quick labs. It doesn't matter, right? So the quick labs, yes, utilize Kindle ID. You're right. If you utilize your Gmail account, you cannot see all the labs, right? Forget about using it. You cannot even see certain labs, right? So when you register in the quick labs, please register with your Kindle ID, right? So make sure that you guys have UWICK, yes, Quick Lab. When you register it, please make sure that you registering it with, I just put a URL here. Please register with your Kindle ID so that you can see all the, all the catalogs items, right? But do you need, voucher? You need money for this? No, you don't need money for here, right? You can just do it by yourself and delete everything that you created it.
Okay,
Right?
got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what is wrong here, right? Why snapshot is not good for database backup, right? Why should I use snapshot for database backup? What is wrong here, right? Yes. So it's a data loss, right? Because you are taking a backup. It's dynamic. Yes, it's dynamic because you need continuous backup for your database. So we will cover how do we take a backup for your database in the coming sessions. There are a lot of available options for database backup. AWS services is available, read replica is available, and there are replication mechanisms are available. It's not a highly matured solution in AWS. It doesn't, support two-way replication like data guard, right? If you're using Oracle data guard, it's a two-way replication, right? You need to rely upon the Oracle data guard in order to get a two-way replication for your database. We'll cover that later. I don't want to talk about right now. So let's look at the auto scaling next. So why do we need auto scaling, right? We talked about AMI. We talked about an EC2 instance. We talked about AMI. AMI is nothing but you're adding operating system, you're adding your web server, app server, database, everything together, and you are getting an AMI, and you're using AMI to spin additional VM. So why do we need auto scaling? So please make sure that you do this lab, right? I'm not covering all the stuff here, right? Please make sure you go through this lab, so that you get a good understanding about, how the auto scaling works. How can you create a launch template? How can you scale these auto scale groups across? So I suggest like you doing two labs. One lab is this, and the second lab is by utilizing command line options, right? You have the command line options. You can put it here, for spinning up auto scaling. So think about this way, right? You need to do auto scaling. That's the only way you need to provide your VMs provisioning. You don't want to utilize AMI, you don't want to utilize EC2. The way you provision EC2 instance and an enterprise is by utilizing auto scaling. So why auto scaling is important? Auto scaling will ensure that it keeps a minimum, maximum, or desired number of EC2 instance at any point of time. One of the major issue with AWS, what is one of the major issue with AWS? The one of the major issue with the AWS is the cost, right? Because people are behaving, it's like an on-prem. So you spend enormous amount of VMs, and you spend you keep it up and running for 24/7. That will cost you enormous amount of money, right? So your objective for the cloud, because of the elasticity, you want to run minimum number of EC2 instance at any point of time, right? And then spin additional VMs when there is a traffic, right? Why do you need to run all these EC2 instance if there is no traffic? Make sense? Okay. So first question I have is, why do we need auto scale? The auto scaling is needed because you want to reduce the cost. You want to run minimum number of EC2 instance at any point of time in AWS. That's the main use case for this. So how do I create a auto scaling? The first step is you use a launch template. How do I create a launch template? I do have one launch template here. All I need to do is launch template is go to your EC2 instance, go to action, and then right click, and that's how you create a launch template. That means it's very similar to AMI. It's very important that you understand the difference between AMI and auto scaling launch template. Launch template you can utilize once you spin it up. You just create a launch template. You just click on here, and all I need to do is Ravi template, and I need to create a versions, and I need to see like which operating system images I need to utilize, or I can utilize my own AMI. So think about this stacking, right? EC2 instance is bottom. Now you created an AMI on top of it. Now you are creating a launch template on top of it, right? Somebody saying mute all. Hey guys, please mute. I think I have a way of muting everyone, but please guys, please mute, your phones so that, okay, thank you. So EC2 instance, so imagine this stack, right? EC2 instance on the bottom, AMI on the top. Now you have another layer on top of it. It's called launch template. Always use launch template when you are creating a VM in an enterprise. Never ever utilize an AMI for creating an EC2 instance, because as a system architect, as an architect, you wanted to make sure that you save money for your organization. So the first questions you need to ask is, how many users will be accessing your application in AWS? Are they accessing it during nighttime, during daytime, or is it accessing in certain times of an year because of shopping, Thanksgiving sales, a lot of people are coming in. So you configure your auto scaling based on the answers for that questions. Always use launch template. So I utilize my own EC2 AMI image from here, and I create. That's it. And there are a couple of additional questions that they ask. Do you need an additional storage, additional, security group, all these things that you can add. And then once you launch it, that's it. Create launch template. You get your own template launch. And once you create a launch template, the next thing you need to do is you need to go to auto scaling group, and you need to configure, you need to tell AWS how you wanted to launch that particular launch template. I created a launch template myself, but I can just walk you through. I'm just creating Ravi auto scaling group, and I'm selecting which launch template I need to take care. Now, next questions that they're asking is which VPC you wanted to associate, which subnet you wanted to associate. That's fine. Next. Okay, it doesn't allow me without going through a VPC. Ravi VPC, and this is the VPC I need to associate. Now it will ask you, hey, do you need a load balancer in front of you, right? Think about this way, right? You created an EC2, you created an AMI, now you create a launch template. Now you are configuring that launch template to set up an architecture, a 3-tier application within AWS. Now it is asking, do you need a load balancer? We'll cover load balancer later. I'm saying, no, I don't need a load balancer. Now, health check info. What exactly the meaning of health check info here? How AWS know that you are getting heavy traffic or your EC2 instances are highly utilized, I need to spin additional VMs. The way AWS know that information is by utilizing the health check. I have no options for deleting this health check. What is a health check? Health check is nothing but, your cloud watch, basically monitoring your EC2 instance all the time. So that cloud watch will let, auto scaling know that, hey, this EC2 instance is highly utilized. Please spin additional, EC2 instance. That's how you can optimize your compute. So now it will ask you, okay, what is your desired capacity? What is your minimum capacity? What is your maximum capacity? What does it mean? What are they talking? What capacity are they talking about here? They're asking about minimum capacity, maximum capacity, desired capacity. what capacity are they talking about, right? VM, thank you. Yes, so you're saying like I need minimum 10 VM running at any point of time, right? I don't care about the load. I want a desired capacity 100, maximum capacity 200. So this is another questions that that exam has it, right? What's the difference between desired capacity and maximum capacity? Desired capacity, at any point of time you can change this desired capacity, right? You just suddenly thought, I wanted to, I'm running only 2 EC2 instance, I need to run 10 EC2 instance. You come here and you change it, it's on the fly, it will spin up. Target scaling policy, this is where you specify like how much is your CPU utilization you wanted to say. Majority of the time CPU is underutilized, right? Guys, I have a small website running in AWS, and the CPU, I'm using the lowest tier for CPU, right? It is an ARM based chip, which is the lowest CPU. CPU is never consumed, only issue is the memory, right? So this is where you can utilize the lowest EC2 instance type that is possible. Always save money for your clients, right? Or by yourself. Don't select like the high EC2 instance type. The only thing important is select good memory, right? SSD, right? SSD is important. And also select like GP3, and also select a good large size memory, a couple of terabyte, couple of gigabyte. That matters a lot, right? CPU, it doesn't matter. So you have here next, that's how you spin an auto scaling, right? So auto scaling will keep you minimum maximum number of EC2 instance. And the way it creates is you create a launch template and then you configure auto scaling, the way you want it. And it is only horizontal scaling. You cannot increase your CPU size or memory size by utilizing auto scaling. This is only for horizontal scaling, right? And the way auto scaling work is basically attached with a CloudWatch. That's how it works, right? Otherwise it doesn't work other ways. That's how they come to know that yes, this is something like I need to spin additional VMs, right? A quick time check. I think it's almost 10:55. I don't think I can cover rest of the stuff, guys. The other stuff which I thought of covering is the storage. So maybe we'll talk about storage next section. We'll see like what are the types of storage available, why somebody should select one storage versus another. There are a lot of exam questions related to S3 versus EFS versus EBS. That's very important. Storage is important. The next thing we'll cover is the database. So I wanted to pause here for a minute. Any questions that you have, like a couple of minutes we have 4 minutes. Let me know if any questions, any clarification that you guys need, we can utilize this time. So in the next session, we thought about storage we'll cover, and then we'll talk about database. Database is very important, right? Where you should utilize NoSQL versus SQL, what services you should utilize, how do we replicate between primary and secondary, and how do we transfer the data from on-prem to your database, right? What are the services available, why we should utilize one versus another, and how do we copy the data from production to non-prod, right? They have services like data sync, which services I am supposed to utilize. Shall I use AWS backup? All these things we'll cover in the coming session, right? Yeah, Madhu, I think I thought of covering a lot, but it looks like the time passed. So we cover only EC2 instance, we cover only EBS, we covered only the auto scaling, we covered snapshot. So once again, please go through the labs, guys. That's how you learn. Please don't I don't recommend you guys looking at even my PowerPoint presentations, right? Because I recommend you to go to a lab, quick lab, do the lab by yourself. That's how the best way of learning this, right? Because the exams, that's what they're trying to test, right? I'm really surprised that They are not asking us to do certain things, spin up a VPC with a highly available architecture. They're not asking that. They could, right? I took the Kubernetes exam. They asked, right? They asked me to write the kube control commands. I would say like that is much useful than, looking at the theory part. So I don't like, reading the documentations and writing the exams. You can pass it, but it's not a shortcut, right? The shortcut is by doing by yourself. That's how you learn, right? Okay, 2 more minutes. Any questions, any comments that you have, let me know if you, yeah. Go ahead.
At the time of launching instance, parallelly by default, snapshot will create, right?
When you launch an instance by default, will it create a snapshot? I don't think so. I'll double check on it.
Okay.
Because yeah, I don't think so. I'll double check it. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I'll double check on it. If anyone knows, please write here. I don't think it will create a snapshot by default because you don't want to commit that S3 storage, right?
So manually we will create, right? Snapshot.
Yeah, Vladimir says it will not create. Yeah, I agree with him. It doesn't create. I'm sorry. Okay. What was your follow-up question?
No, manually we will create snapshot, right?
Yes. So that's why the snapshot, think about this way, it's like saving your PowerPoint presentation. Always save your work, right? And as AWS best practices also says, right? You always take a snapshot and delete the snapshot if you don't want it, right? Delete all the previous versions, right? Yeah, so it's an expensive, Jonathan. I agree. Yeah, there is a fee associated with that because underlying storage you need to pay for it. But I always, if I am doing something in AWS, I always take a snapshot at any point of time, right? Then I delete it once similar to like PowerPoint, how many versions you wanted to keep, right? At some point, you don't need the previous versions, right? So delete everything that you don't want. Okay, any other comments, any other questions? Okay, I think it's a time. Guys, I'm available in case if you have any questions, anything, please reach out to me. I'll be available and we can talk. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate you guys' time. I hope it's useful for all of you guys. I see like, more than 50 people here. So please make sure that, you get something out of this training. That's why your comments, welcome. Thank you. Have a nice day, guys.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thanks, Ravi.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks.